In this episode of The Worthy Physician, I sat down and talked to personal trainer entrepreneur Marquis Bradley. Now, why would I have a personal trainer on a podcast that's related to physician burnout? Well, number one, I think we as physicians encounter so many people, we'd be silly not to actually learn from the people with whom we encounter, whether it's our patients, the person sitting next to us, wherever that may be. But also, remembering and going back to making time for yourself, that's important. Back in 2016, I restructured my life due to being an only child and one of my parents having health complications. And carving out time and keeping myself in good health was a priority. That's where I met Marquis. Every time I encountered this young man, he was never tired. He was always energetic and very positive. And during a time in my life, in this episode of The Worthy Physician, I sat down and talked to personal trainer entrepreneur Marquis Bradley. Now, why would I have a personal trainer on a podcast that's related to physician burnout? Well, number one, I think we as physicians encounter so many people, we'd be silly not to actually learn from the people with whom we encounter, whether it's our patients, the person sitting next to us, wherever that may be. But also, remembering and going back to making time for yourself, that's important. Back in 2016, I restructured my life due to being an only child and one of my parents having health complications. And carving out time and keeping myself in good health was a priority. That's where I met Marquis. Every time I encountered this young man, he was never tired. He was always energetic and very positive. And during a time in my life, we met each other back in 2016 when we started coming to your gym at Omnicut. And I just loved the atmosphere because it was incredibly positive. And not only that, but you could have an awesome workout, feel better than when you came in, and just it was everybody was just great. And one thing I've noticed, doesn't matter what time of day it was, morning, afternoon, or evening, you were always pumped, full of energy. I don't know how, and always motivated. So how do you stay motivated when you feel stressed or feel like you've hit rock bottom?
So for me personally, I feel like, when things are just not going the way I wanted them to go, a lot of times I got to think back about previous experiences when I was young. And I think about the things I had to overcome at a young age, and also think about like my mother and what she had to overcome, and then my grandmother. And so for me, I kind of draw from, other people and, figure out how they got through it. And then once I realized that, hey, they got through it and, all they had to do was stay the course. And then I try to figure out the same thing for myself. I look at, hey, is this the worst thing that's ever happened to me? And if it's not, then, if I got through that moment, then can I get through this moment? And I think sometimes we, when we're kids, we have all the joy in the world, the happiness, things, nothing is too serious. And it's crazy because I feel like when life hits you when you get older, things change. We lose that freedom to think like, oh, it's going to be okay. Right. Instead, we just let all that pressure just continue to pile on us and we become overwhelmed. And so I think the biggest thing is to go back and just kind of have that crazy faith. And that crazy faith that I talk about is what I grew up with. My mom, she made sure that, I was in church every Sunday and things like that. And even though I didn't want to go to church,
right,
she made sure I was there.
Right.
She made sure. And, at the beginning, I didn't get it. I'm just like, okay. But over time, it wasn't even a question. It was, okay, I need to go to church because I know for a fact I'm not strong enough to handle a lot of these battles I'm dealing with. Amen. But I know somebody is.
Amen.
And so I always had a source to go back to kind of pull me out of that hole. I think about, there's a story that I read when I was young, and it said I was walking along the beach and God was walking with me. And as I was walking, I would think about life would happen. And the harder life got, I would look down at the sand and I would see one footprint. And I didn't understand it because during the good times, I saw two footprints, but during the tough times, I only saw one. And so when I got a chance to talk to God, I said, God, I don't get it. Why would you leave me during the most trying times? And that's when he replied, I didn't leave you. That's when I carried you.
Footprints in the sand.
Footprints in the sand.
It's one of my favorites as well. And so do you think that we need to sometimes think like children in the sense that going back to the source of faith and saying everything's going to be okay and just putting blind faith into God or the higher power? If it, I'm Christian, you're Christian, but maybe some of the listeners are not. Putting faith in the higher power and saying, I submit and I'm going to give control up to the higher power.
Yeah. So I recently learned that exact thing. It says, when I can give it up, I gain more. The more you give, the more you gain.
Right.
And sometimes we try to be superheroes, or we try to be the one that has all the answers. And sometimes we're not the ones that have all the answers. Sometimes we need help. And I think that's why, like with the gym, people in the gym, everybody knows what to do when it comes to working out. And so when they know what to do, but yet they show up, they realize that a lot of times they know what to do, but they don't necessarily want to do it. But when you have somebody there guiding you and holding you accountable and encouraging you, you realize there's a lot more that you can get done with somebody else than just by yourself.
Right.
And so I think
more
that's
efficient.
Way more efficient. And I think that's kind of how I look at it. I look at it as, hey, I know for a fact that I'm not strong enough to get the job done. But I know that there is somebody that is. And whether it's God or whether it's a friend or whether it's a family member, there's somebody that can help me get back on track. And it all depends on, how you look at it. You're either going to have the mindset that things are always going to work out or things are never going to work out. Mm-hmm. There's a quote that I love, and the quote says, everything's going to be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, then it's not the end.
Good point. It's a very good point. We just kind of jumped into the questions. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
So I'm Marquis Bradley. I am 32 years old, and I'm a graduate from Grinnell College in Iowa. I started my business here in Wichita, Kansas, back in 2012, OmniCut Motivational Fitness. I own a personal training gym here in town where I use the tools of helping people get back in shape and things like that. But I allow my platform to actually help me encourage and inspire and add as much value to people's lives as I possibly can. And from there, I've been able to build a team, and my team is now on the same journey where we're trying to really impact as many people that we can. And it's been amazing because I've been able to work with all backgrounds, all walks of life, from professional athletes to doctors to lawyers to CEOs to janitors to firefighters to policemen to nurses to doctors to you name it, kids. And so I feel like in my field of work, I get the responsibility of making somebody's day better. So one of our big mottos is, you might walk in one way, but I promise you're going to walk out better. It doesn't matter how you walk in, but when you leave, you will be better.
And I can attest to that was always true. And it still is. It still is even today. And one thing why would I have, so this podcast is about physician burnout. Why would I have you on? And one of the reasons is because of how positive and how motivational you have always been Not only that, but I love your business model and how it's grown. So I think that that is just huge because I know I learned a lot from you over the years. And maybe that's not something I've told you personally, but I'm telling you now. And I just think it's awesome. I mean, anybody that as humans, we're all going to hit rock bottom at some point. But no matter how hard things were, how little sleep you had, there's no way I could tell. And I know it wasn't from energy drinks. It was from something deep within you. And it was pure grit and faith, if I'm not mistaken. Would you agree?
100%. 100%. When I first started training, it was very difficult because, in order for me to even start training, I stepped out on faith and I left my job. And I took the mindset of, you know what, I'm going to start my own business. And I think when people think you're going to start your own business, they're like, oh, it's going to be more freedom and all the things that go along with it.
No.
And so even though I did know that, it was funny because I was not prepared for the actual reality. Because in order to start my own business in person training and motivational speaking, I had to have 1, clients, and 2, I had to have speaking jobs. And at the time I had neither. And so I did get to that point where I really had to ask myself questions and, through experiences, I feel like life gives you is the best teacher, especially if you can learn from those experiences. So one of the experiences I had was I was in McDonald's drive-thru and I knew I didn't have much, but I knew I at least had $1 and some change. So I ordered a McChicken and I get to the drive-thru window and I give her one of my credit cards and she says decline. I give her another credit card that says decline. I give her my debit card that says decline. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I look over next to me. And I'm like, at least got to have $1 in change. And in my cup drawer, I had 47 cents.
Wow.
And it was at that moment when I realized that, wow, I really have nothing to my name. But the thing about me, which I've been very thankful for, is I learned a long time ago that no matter how bad it gets, as long as you can look up, you can get up. And you got to keep on going and you got to figure it out. And so it was at that moment where I should have cursed God and I should have said, why would you allow me to do this? Because I'm a graduate from college. I graduated from college. I was doing so much and yet I'm the lowest I've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's when I should have gave up or quit and I should have been cursing God. But instead, I never forget, I told the lady, no, thank you. I drove out of the drive-thru and tears began to fall from my eyes. And the tears were not tears of sadness or anger. They were actually tears of joy. Because I heard a scripture one day, and the scripture says, although you slay me, I still will serve you. Meaning, no matter what I have to go through, God, I still will serve you. Right. And I felt like that was my test to see how committed I was, how dedicated I was, and did I really have that kind of crazy faith? And from there, I went from just thanking him because I said, I know for a fact that if this is bottom, then I can get up. And I mean, I thanked him the whole drive and tears just continued to run down my eyes. And I didn't know what was going to happen or how it was going to happen. But within 2 weeks, I went from having probably 5 or so clients to having close to 50 clients.
Oh, wow.
And it was absolutely, and I mean, I can't explain it because it wasn't like I did anything different. I did everything the exact same. It just random people would come in the door and they say, you Marquis Bradley? And I said, yeah. And they say, I heard about you. I want to start training with you. And it happened over and over and over again. And they say, I'm like, wait a minute, this is real. And it really hasn't stopped since.
That's awesome. So would you say that's how you keep yourself motivated to get up out of bed every day, even on those days where if you have those days where you feel like you're spent and you feel like you have nothing else to give?
Oh, yeah. Man, I'll probably say what keeps me getting up is the fact that, I was raised without a father, and I never use it as my crutch or my excuse. Why I use it as motivation. So for me, I have a little girl who is 3 years old, a little boy who's 9 months. And so what gets me up every single morning is the fact that I know I want to leave them something because my father left me absolutely nothing. And I don't want to leave this earth and for them to have nothing.
Right.
And so I realized that I got to get up and I got to get active and I got to move and I got to figure out a way to make it work. Because if I don't, then they won't get the head start they need.
Right. And by the way, your kids are absolutely the cutest. They really are.
Thank you. Thank you.
As a physician, I'm not always in control of a situation given recent events, but for the most part, physicians are mostly in control of a situation. Have you ever had a point in your life where you had to ask for help and you didn't know how? I mean, how do you get to that point to say, I need help? Because for a lot of people, including myself, that's swallowing a lot of pride.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's ego check.
Yeah.
You got to check your ego. And that's something that I've learned big time is that, and I really didn't think I had an ego like that until I realized I had an ego like that. And so I think you got to ask yourself, what's more important? And I think that's what's going to make all the difference. So is it more important to go without knowing you need help and you're hurting everybody else around you? Or is it better to say, you know what? I'm at my lowest. I know I cannot figure this out. I need help. This is my source of help. And I know for a fact that if they can help me, this is going to make everybody else around me better.
Right.
And I can use this. And then I can come back and I can repay them. Or I can just, in some way possible. So I had a mentor, and my mentor would always bless us on Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And it was crazy because what people don't realize is sometimes you're robbing somebody else of their blessings because of your stubbornness. Meaning, if you do something for me and I say, here, I want to say thank you and I want to pay you. And we say, no, you don't got to pay me. I'm saying, no, I do want to pay you, because what you don't understand is the more I give, the more I know I'm going to receive.
Right.
And so some people are put in positions to be able to give. And the more they give, the more they're going to receive. And so if I'm in a spot where I know I need help, I know for a fact I don't want to rob somebody else of their blessing because of my ego. And so you have to humble yourself and just say, you know what? I'm down now, but I'm not always going to be down. And I've used my mentor has always said the same thing. He says, listen, I will help you, but when you get the opportunity, I need you to help somebody else. And I think that's what it's about. You got to go into it with the mindset is, okay, I might be down and out right now, but I'm not going to stay down and out. One day I'm going to be better.
But what I love about what you just said, and it just kind of smacked me literally in real time, you're robbing somebody else of their blessings because of your stubbornness. That's pretty insightful and incredibly impactful.
Man, I tell you, it's been a lot of times where, my grandmother or a mother figure has put me to the side and told me exactly that.
No, you're absolutely right. And part of the thing is in medicine, we are conditioned, I believe, to maybe not directly, but by the process, by medical school and residency, you have this facade where you know everything, you're always in control of your emotions, and at some point it just breaks you. It breaks you, and you can't. You have to allow yourself to be human, but also part of that is realizing, number one, you cannot control everything, And that's where submission to a higher power comes in. I don't think faith has ever been more important in my life than what it is now. And I'm not real religious, but I'm more spiritual. Uh, but then also putting the ego aside and learning to ask for help. I did not learn that until probably the birth of my son. And that was, I was 36, 37. So, I mean, how did I make it to almost 40 with poor coping mechanisms? I just, it's just crazy.
That is absolutely crazy.
And then you have so much, you're a busy person. How do you keep motivating others through your work and through your speaking when, there's a finite energy to Marquis Bradley? How do you keep motivating others, and how do you keep motivating yourself in addition to what we've already discussed?
So my new rule right now is, you take your cup and you pour it into so many other people, and you help them and you encourage them and you inspire them. And if you look, your cup will sometimes run empty. And if you don't have someone close to you, like mentors, or you don't have somebody that can actually add fuel to your cup, then you'll run empty, and people will drain you of your energy.
Right.
And so what I've always done is I've always found ways to, tap into some other source that can help me mentally. And so the thing about me is I tell people all the time, I'm not religious, and so what I do is I tell people that for me, I look at the bigger picture and I look at, what I believe. And I believe in God, but I don't believe in the traditions and a lot of the rituals and things like that. And I think that everybody's welcome to, believe what they believe. Right. And I tell people that God has never failed me and Jesus never failed me. So I won't step away from that, and that's what I believe. And in the process, I think about the stories, and a lot of the stories talks about just mentors and having other people like guide you. And so for me is I know that if I am dealing with something that's bigger than me, if I can go and talk to one of my mentors that have been through this road, they actually will encourage me and motivate me and give me hope that it's possible. And so even in books alone will tell you, that, hey, I've been through this and this is how I overcame it. And so when I look at my life, I say, wow, I'm going through this right now. And this is what they did to overcome this. Maybe I could use this. And I just use that as that's my fuel that's been added to my cup that allows me to fill up and go out there and pour it out more.
That's awesome. And do you have any book titles or authors that have stuck with you?
Oh, yeah. So one of my favorite books of all times, and I recommend it for everybody, is Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
That's a great book.
It's just one of those books that really, it talks to you in a different way and let you know that sometimes your own family will be wrong.
Right.
And so you can't, it's important. Another one I like is the book Good to Great. And I love My Pleasure. That's the Chick-fil-A book. And it just talks about, in that book alone, it talks about service. And I think we've gotten so far away from good service just as humans.
Right.
To where when I read that book, I look at one scene alone. And it's the guy goes out and he's driving to Chick-fil-A, the owner. And every time he goes to the shop, the Chick-fil-A, he pulls over on the side of the road. He picks up the trash, getting off the highway on the ramp. Mm-hmm. And one day somebody asked me, they said, well, why do you do that? It's because I want your image and perception of Chick-fil-A to be clean at all times. So even when you get off the ramp alone, I want you to think, wow, that's clean. And then when you go to our restaurants, that's clean. And that is just that mentality. And he says, even though the problem didn't start with me, it will end with me. And I think so many times in our lives, we think, oh, I didn't make that mess or I didn't do that. So that's not none of my business. But sometimes you are there to stop the mess from continuing to happen. If you see a box in the road, you see a bed in the road, and you just keep driving around it, somebody might not see that bed. And it could cause an accident. And yet you were the one that was meant to go first to remove the bed, but yet you were too busy, worried about you, that you didn't even think about anybody else was going to come after you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in our world, we got to get back to the sense of it's like, it's bigger than just us. There's somebody that's going to come after us. There's somebody that's going to come next. And what are we going to do? How are we going to help them? What difference can we make? So regardless of where the problem started, how are you going to fix the problem? And are you going to add flames to the fire, or are you going to die it down?
I think that's beautiful. And it kind of goes back to the whole idea of your brother's keeper, or the sense of community. And I think a lot of us have forgotten about that. That's actually part of the reason why we moved back to where we live right now, is just to, it's a bit stronger here than I think in Wichita, and Wichita is different than when you and I grew up. Having said that, we still have a lot of close family and friends in the Wichita area, and it's great. It's the reason why we haven't left this area, is because of the community, and it's just, it's great. And do you have any advice for listeners on how to develop positivity, even in the grimmest of situations? Medicine right now is a new beast in the sense of burnout, and I think we're going to see a lot of more resignation over the next few weeks, given some of the political climate within medicine. Just the burnout in general has just been fueled by COVID.
And stop. And after you slow down and stop, you got to break down the situation. You got to break down kind of the overall vision, the view. What does it look like? And, what is all the reasons and what are the causes? And you sit down and you kind of break it down. After you kind of break that down, then I think you got to come up with a game plan. I think you can't just jump out. The world is going to keep throwing different things at you. And sometimes I feel like we're not prepared mentally. We're not prepared physically, because we're so busy just responding without actually proper thinking to it. And so I think life's a test. Not too many people can go out and pass a test if they haven't been studying and haven't been practicing. And I think right now we're all dealing with these new tests. And so I think it's important for us to stop for a second and actually to study, to break down what is the test in front of us. What are we dealing with? And then from there, come up with a game plan. And not a game plan that's going to fix it overnight in one day, but it's a process. What is your process? What is your game plan for today? And does that process equal what you want to get to in a week? And does that week, if you did that consistently, does that equal up to what you want to get to in a month? And then after that month, does those consistent months equal up to that year? So I have my big goal, then I have my small goals, and then I have my micro goals that's going to help me get to that larger goal. And I think sometimes we let life just kind of direct us and push us the way we want to go. And I think right now with COVID, it was unexpected. It's different. And I feel like now that is different. And now that we have been faced with these challenges, like, okay, how can I position myself in the best possible way to be successful? And I think that's coming up with a game plan. And everybody's game plan is going to be completely different because we all work different. So you got to figure out a game plan that works best for you. But the most thing I think it's important for everybody to know is there's one thing that we all get, and after that, it's gone. And you don't get it again, and that's time.
Right.
Time is the most important thing. And I think we forget that. I think we got all the time in the world, and we really don't. And so if you don't actually have a ground or a foundation set on how you're spending your time, how you're spending it wisely, and are you spending it with people you want to spend it with? Are you doing those things? Then I think your life will continue to go in the direction it's going. But I think if you really want to make a change, you really want to see difference, and you really want to stay motivated, and you really want to figure out different avenues of different revenue or whatever it may be, I think you got to first start with your time and ask yourself, are you using your time wisely? And does your game plan align with the amount of time that you have? And once you figure that out, I think things will figure itself out.
I think that's a great point. Kind of going back to not just getting your game plan together, but having that crazy type of faith, remembering that everything's going to be okay no matter what, and if it's not okay, then it's not the end.
100%.
Hey, do you have any last minute thoughts or anything else that you would like to add? Because I've learned quite a bit from this last 30 minutes. As always, I learned from you, and I appreciate that so much.
No, it's mutual. The feeling is mutual, and I appreciate the opportunity just to be able to help and encourage. And I appreciate you even believing in me to be able to do this. I think the final words that I would probably leave for everyone, including myself, is you only get one opportunity to live life. So make sure you live it and love every minute of it. Make sure you love your family as much as you can love them. Spend as much quality time with them as you possibly can. Put down the phone. No joke. I think we need to put down the phone and we need to talk to people more. We need to hug people more. We need to love and laugh with people more. And I think that we go out here and we try to do all these things for our family, but yet our family gets the least amount of our energy, the least amount of our time.
Right.
So I think we got to always kind of remember that it's bigger than just work. Sometimes it's about taking time out and spending quality time with your family. And that is what's going to keep you motivated. It's going to keep you going. It's going to keep you happy. It's going to keep you energized. And most important, it's going to keep you focused.
I like that a lot. And thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday morning to come here and talk to me. And I appreciate this.
I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us today. This concludes the podcast. Subscribe, tell a friend, follow us at www.theworthyphysician.com. Remember, you are worthy, you are human. Take care.
Second time